Lamborghini is no doubt one of the best cars, but we have some of the best rival options as well. But you should not insult a tractor tycoon. Why? Well, there is a solid reason. Hello friends, welcome back to Business Band. Today, we are back here again with an interesting video. Here, we are going to discuss never insulting a tractor tycoon. Before that, let us know in the comment section which is your favorite car brand. Also, subscribe to our channel to watch more videos like this one. Let us start with the video. Enzo Ferrari was a demanding, arrogant, and energetic guy, much like other famous inventors such as Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. Lamborghini is Ferrari's greatest competitor and the subject of the aforementioned incendiary combination of personality traits that eventually led to the creation of Lamborghini. This rather amusing chain of events can be traced back to the beginning of the company. In the same way that the history of Ferrari took us to the north of Italy, the history of Lamborghini does the same thing. In the calm municipality of Renasso di Cento, which is located in the Emilia-Romagna province. There, amid the family's vines, Antonio and Evelina Lamborghini reared their son Ferruccio, despite the fact that they were impoverished grape growers. Although you won't understand the significance of that fact until a little bit further down the road, the young Ferruccio was born under the sign of the Taurus Bull. The fact that he was born in 1916, right smack dab in the heart of the First World War, is maybe of the utmost significance. Despite this, Ferruccio grew up to be an optimistic and ambitious man, but like the majority of impoverished Italians in the early 20th century, he was unable to achieve his goals. He was in a precarious situation that required his immediate attention. Either he might continue to work in a more conventional occupation as a farmer, or he could take a chance and try his hand at manufacturing and industrial labor in an effort to keep ahead of the curve. Ferruccio, on the other hand, had little trouble making his decision, since he had an unhealthy preoccupation with mechanical things and found it difficult to stay away from his father's garage. This ultimately prompted him to pursue studies in mechanics, and by 1935, he had gained sufficient experience to feel comfortable opening his own workshop. Ferruccio, on the other hand, was ripped away from his family after a period of 5 years. Life of people certainly inspires us to do something in our lives. Let us know in the comments section who is your inspiration. Now let us continue with the video. The Second World War had a positive impact on everyday living in the civilian sector. In 1940, he was conscripted into the Royal Italian Air Force and sent to the garrison on the island of Rhodes in Greece to work as a mechanic. Rhodes was located in Greece. Ferruccio was able to acquire excellent knowledge in the areas of scrapping and repurposing outdated equipment as a result of the responsibilities that were assigned to him. However, in 1943, when Italy had given up, a German formation seized the garrison by force and expelled their old comrades. This took place after Italy had capitulated. Ferruccio had the option to leave, but he chose instead to continue working for the organization as a civilian, and with the permission of the Germans, he opened up his own workshop and began running it. The Germans had a deep appreciation for Lamborghini's technological prowess, but by 1945, the Allies had arrived on the scene and the Germans were forced to surrender. They captured everyone in the garrison as prisoners. But after seeing what Ferruccio was capable of, they put him to work repairing their vehicles for a whole year until 1946, when they eventually released him and sent him back home. Ferruccio founded another studio that did not last long when he returned to Italy. Nevertheless, not long after that, he had a wonderful idea that changed the course of his life forever. The fact that he had worked on vehicles of both the Allies and the Axis provided him with a significant advantage over the majority of other mechanics. He was aware that, after the war, Italy would require an increase in agricultural production in order to heal the wounds caused by the war. He reasoned that the vast stockpiles of military equipment that Mussolini's government had commissioned would be the best place to obtain the machinery necessary to accomplish this task. When Ferruccio established his first business at the tail end of 1947, he began putting his ambitious plan into action. With just 3 more mechanics and 2,000 lire in his pocket, Ferruccio invested his first cash and took everything into his own hands when it came to the large-scale manufacture of reasonably priced tractors. His primary source of supply was ARAR, the government-owned corporation that was tasked with selling off all of the surplus military equipment that was left over after the war. Ferruccio developed a groundbreakingly economical tractor that he was able to sell all throughout Italy by altering an old British Morris engine so that it ran on inexpensive diesel rather than on costly gasoline. He did this by removing the engine and converting it to operate on diesel. This was going to be the first of his Carioca tractors, and he was quite excited about it. On February the 3rd of 1948, they were first shown to the public, and Italy immediately went absolutely crazy over them. Because the design was such a hit, Ferruccio Lamborghini decided to launch a second business under the same name, Lamborghini Trattori. In order to purchase hundreds of Morris, Perkins, and Dodge engines from ARR, he increased his workforce by 4 people, purchased a factory in Cento, and took out a loan for 10 million liras that were secured by the grape field that his family owned. In addition to that, he made the choice to take part in the famous endurance event known as the Mille Miglia. A skill starts from the scratch. Let us know in the comment box what is your success story. Let us continue with the video. Restaurant and retire from racing for the rest of his life after making that decision. Despite this, his firm was thriving, and by the year 1950, Trattori had a staff of 30 workers and the capacity to manufacture over 200 tractors annually. Ferruccio realized that he needed to meet the ever-increasing demand for his products, and in 1951, he purchased 1 hectare of property, on which he subsequently established a new manufacturing facility. In the same year, 1951, the L33 tractor was released into the market. Its popularity would substantially benefit from the government incentives that were offered to farmers who utilized equipment that was made domestically. Having struck a deal with Motor Rennwerk in Mannheim for the production of their diesel engines, Lamborghini is now able to manufacture tractors on its own. Ferruccio's new plant produced its first tractor in 1956, and by that time, he had already optimized the design of his engine to revolve around 3 distinct levels of horsepower. Ferruccio also made the trip over the Atlantic Ocean to the US in order to purchase a heating and air conditioning technology there. By the early 1960s, the Lamborghini tractor factory had grown to employ 400 people and was producing as many as 30 tractors each and every working day. Its most significant achievements during this time period were a series of air-cooled tractor engines and even designs for helicopters. However, the government never gave its approval for these projects. In 1961, Ferruccio debuted a second oil heater facility that he dubbed, and at that time, he was so wealthy that he decided to indulge in his passion for sports automobiles. Ferruccio was exceedingly critical of any technical flaws that he discovered in any of the vehicles that he owned, due to the fact that he himself was a trained mechanic. 2 Alfa Romeos, 2 Maseratis, a Jaguar E-Type, and a Ferrari were all included in the collection. A Mercedes-Benz, in addition to the customary assortment of Ferraris, is on display here. Ferruccio was particularly drawn to Ferraris, despite the fact that he considered them to be pointlessly loud and that their interiors were quite basic. He was especially annoyed by the odd propensity of the Ferraris to have their clutches break down on a consistent basis. Ferruccio drove the trouble car directly to Modena, where he had a confrontational conversation with Enzo Ferrari about the clutches. This occurred after Ferruccio had finally become wary of all the costs for repairs. Let us know in the comment box whose side are you on. Also, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to get a notification of our latest videos. Enzo essentially disregarded him and advised him to concentrate on driving tractors in the future. Ferruccio saw this as a challenge, which is not very unexpected, coming from the guy who dismissed the majority of his senior employees when they complained about his wife. However, it is remarkable that Ferruccio saw this as an opportunity. He was fully aware of the gains that might be made in the Gran Turismo sector, and as a result, in 1963, the tractor Tycoon opened an automotive plant next to Sant'Agata. Therefore, Ferruccio developed automobiling out of an innate impulse to give Enzo the finger, and the company was a huge success. Lamborghini. The bull was his own astrological sign, and he also had a strong interest in bullfighting, so he decided to use it as a symbol for the company. As Lamborghini's corporation surged forward through new milestones year after year, this very frightening monster proved to be an appropriate emblem of the brand. In 1964, a young engineer named Paolo Sanzani was responsible for the creation of the first Lamborghini that was able to function properly. This vehicle was the GT350. It had some really remarkable technology. such as a V12 engine and a 5-speed transmission, among other things. Transmission, 4-wheel disc brakes, and 4-wheel independent suspension are all included in this vehicle's standard equipment. The creation of the GT350 was not an easy task, and the model's prototype was riddled with a number of critical design effects, all of which were brought to light at its hasty debut at the auto show in Turin in the year 1963. The fact that the engine itself could not even be accommodated inside the confines of the car's body panels was the most significant problem. Ferruccio came up with the idea to solve the problem by stuffing the compartment with bricks and ensuring that the lid was always in its closed position, because at the end of the day, that was the point of the show. Observing automobiles, but without really getting behind the wheel of one, in the end, the GT350 was a technological marvel that won plaudits from reviewers as well as buyers. It sold very well. 1966 was the year that saw the release of the Miura P400 and the 400 GT. The Miura is also significant for being the automobile that made the rear mid-engine layout the norm for all high-performance cars of its age, a pattern that is still in use today. This standard was established by Miura. It was initially conceived as a vehicle for use in street racing and was built by a group of daring engineers led by Marcello Gandini. They were diligent in maintaining the project's confidentiality. Ferruccio, as opposed to developing race vehicles, owing to his personal racing incident in 1948 took place in the sport he participated in. Ferruccio was captivated enough by the new design to convince him to keep it, despite the fact that he had strengthened his commitment to the non-racing policy he had already established. Alongside the Islero 400 GT, the Espada cemented its place as one of Lamborghini's most enduring and revered classics in the year 1968. The prosperous run of the firm was extended with the introduction of well-known models like the Countach LP500, the Urraco P250, and the Jarama 400 GTS. On the other hand, the 1970s would be characterized by how Lamborghini is now going through some challenging circumstances. In 1973, only 2 years after the Bretton Woods system was dismantled, the world's financial markets were rocked by a severe decline, with the Dow losing over half of its value. This was the beginning of the Great Depression. At the same time, OAPEC initiated an oil embargo, which resulted in a significant increase in the price of gasoline and sent the car industry into its crisis. Lamborghini Trattori was also hampered when an agreement to provide Bolivia with 5,000 tractors was terminated following the 1971 coup by Bolivian President Evo Morales. Ferruccio did all in his power to keep his several businesses afloat. He was ultimately able to find purchasers for the tractors that had not been sold, and he also moved the plant that manufactured oil heaters to Dosso, which is situated in Nigeria. In the end, however, in order to save his company from going bankrupt, he had to sell shares in Lamborghini to investors from outside the company. Ferruccio was incapacitated by the crisis, and despite the fact that he was successful in rescuing Lamborghini, he decided to resign in the face of the broad strikes and unionization that had swept throughout Italy. He parted ways with the Trattori company and sold it to an additional Italian tractor producer. 1 year later, he parted ways with the remaining 49% of his ownership position in Automobili Lamborghini and sold it to a Swiss entrepreneur by the name of René Lemaire. René's buddy had already purchased the remaining 51% of the company, and the two of them had the intention of bringing the brand back to life together. In spite of their best efforts, none of their endeavors was successful, and Automobili Lamborghini was ultimately forced to go out of business and dissolve its assets. The Mimran brothers, two French businessmen, purchased Lamborghini from the Italian government in 1980 for the sum of $3 million. He had huge sugarcane plantations and bread factories in Africa at the time. The brothers had lofty goals of renovating all of Lamborghini's buildings and building a new team of engineers, but they rapidly found themselves going over budget and ultimately ended up selling the firm. Lamborghini was acquired by Chrysler in 1987, and the automaker had the intention of bringing the premium automobile brand into the US. However, less than 5 years later, Lamborghini still had not produced a profit, and so Chrysler decided to sell the company to an Indonesian conglomerate in order to get rid of it. The Indonesians were indeed successful in restoring the brand to some degree, and Lamborghini generated a respectable profit of $120,000 in the year 1996 as a result of their efforts. In 1998, the region of Asia was hit by a severe financial crisis, and this coincided with the beginning of Lamborghini's successful sales campaign. This time, the buyer was Ferdinand Pitch of Volkswagen, who had previously acquired both Bentley and Bugatti in the same year. Lamborghini's framework saw significant simplification when it was under Volkswagen's hands, which allowed the company to compete more effectively. Because of this, it was finally able to begin reclaiming its position among the premium sports cars market. In order for Lamborghini to address the difficulties of the 21st century, the company has been actively promoting its brand name while at the same time spending extensively on the research and development of new materials. Even at their most affordable tiers, their automobiles are still unaffordable to the typical middle-class consumer, despite the fact that they have expanded the price ranges at which they are offered. The Lamborghini Gallardo is without a doubt the model that has brought the contemporary automaker to its greatest heights of success. During the 10 years that it was in production, the Gallardo sold more than 5,000 units. A little over 14,000 vehicles were produced, making it Lamborghini's most successful model ever. The firm saw its greatest year ever in terms of sales in 2015, when it went from selling slightly more than 2,500 automobiles to selling more than 3,000. They are already producing other heavy hitters like the Urus SUV concept or the Huracan, which is the successor of the Gallardo. It would seem that Lamborghini's game of corporate hot potato has finally come to a stop, at least for the time being. This is based on the evidence shown up to this point. However, it is not out of the question to claim that Ferruccio would be thrilled to discover that Lamborghini is once again playing the red flag to Ferrari's bull if he were able to see his firm today, and that he would be happy to hear this news. You and other viewers on Patreon made it possible for us to produce this film. In exchange for a contribution of as little as $5, you will have the opportunity to have your say about the organization that will be the subject of our future video. Awesome, right? Additionally, we strongly suggest that you check out our channel. So here we are done with this video. Let us know in the comment box what do you think about this video. Also, if you like the content, like it and share it with all of your friends. If you want to watch more videos like this one, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to get a notification of our latest videos. Thank you for watching.